The prison did not appear on any map. It rose from the desert like a wound that never healed. Black stone walls soaked with old rust-colored stains that no amount of rain had ever washed away. Inmates called it Stillwatch because nothing inside ever seemed to move, except the guard. No one knew his name. He worked only the night shift, walking the corridors between midnight and dawn. He never spoke, never coughed, never blinked. His eyes were always wide open, pale and glassy, reflecting the flickering lights like a dead animal caught in headlights. The first time Elias saw him, he felt it in his stomach. A sudden tightening, like something invisible had wrapped a hand around his organs and squeezed. The guard stopped in front of Elias's cell and stared directly at him through the bars. Minutes passed, then longer. Elias counted his breaths to stay calm. 1, 2, 3. The guard didn't move. Other prisoners whispered warnings through the walls. Don't look at him too long. Lower your eyes. Pretend he isn't there. Elias tried. He stared at the floor, but he could still feel those eyes drilling into his skull, scraping the inside of his thoughts. When the guard finally walked away, Elias realized his shirt was soaked. Not with sweat, but blood. His nose had been bleeding the entire time, dripping silently onto the concrete. That night, a scream echoed from the far end of the block. Wet, gurgling, then silence. By morning, cell block D smelled like iron. They found Marcus hanging halfway out of his bunk. His chest torn open as if something had clawed its way out. His ribs were peeled apart, snapped backward like broken fingers. There was no weapon, no struggle marks, only deep bite impressions embedded in the meat of his shoulders and throat. Human teeth, pressed so hard they cracked bone. The official report called it self-inflicted psychosis. No one believed that. Marcus had been the loudest voice in the block, the one who laughed at rumors, the one who stared openly at the guard every night, smirking like he dared him to do something. Elias remembered it clearly. Marcus locking eyes with the guard for far too long, the smile slowly fading from his face, his lips trembling, a thin line of blood leaking from the corner of his mouth as if his body was already breaking from the inside. That night, the guard stopped in front of Marcus's cell longer than usual. Elias couldn't sleep afterward. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw them, those unblinking eyes hovering inches from his face. He felt phantom pressure on his chest, like invisible jaws tightening around his ribs. When the guard passed again near dawn, Elias risked a glance. For the first time, he noticed something moving beneath the guard's skin. Subtle ripples under his jaw. A slow bulge traveling down his throat, as if he were swallowing something large, something that struggled on the way down. After Marcus's death, the rules changed. No one spoke during the night shift anymore. No whispers, no prayers. Men lay rigid on their bunks, staring at walls, afraid that even closing their eyes might draw attention. The guard's footsteps echoed heavier now, slower, as if he wanted them to hear him coming. Elias began to notice patterns. Every inmate who disappeared had done the same thing. Stared too long. Some out of defiance. Others out of fear. A few out of curiosity. It didn't matter why. Only that they met his gaze. On the 7th night, Elias failed. The guard stopped in front of his cell again. Elias kept his head down, counting cracks in the floor. 1, 2, 3. But the silence stretched unnaturally long. The air grew thick, humid, heavy with the smell of blood. Against his will, Elias looked up. The guard's face was inches away from the bars. His mouth hung slightly open, stretched wider than human anatomy should allow. Inside, rows of uneven teeth. Too many. Some cracked, some freshly red. Their eyes met. Pain exploded behind Elias's eyes. He felt fingers, not hands, fingers, sliding inside his skull, rummaging through memories, peeling thoughts apart. He tasted blood, felt his gums split. His vision blurred as something inside him began to tear. The last thing he saw before screaming was the guard finally blinking and smiling. Elias woke up choking on blood. His scream had died somewhere in his throat, turning into a wet gargle as his body convulsed on the concrete floor of the cell. His vision swam, red bleeding into black. When he tried to move, pain tore through his skull like barbed wire being dragged across bone. The guard was gone. The bars were bent inward, twisted as if something had pressed its face through them. Blood coated the metal in hand-shaped smears, fingers dragged downward, slow and deliberate. Elias crawled to the corner and vomited chunks of dark red clots. His mouth throbbed. Several teeth felt loose. One lay on the floor beside him, still attached to a string of flesh. But he was alive. That terrified him more than death. Over the next days, Elias began to change. He heard things others couldn't, soft breathing inside the walls, faint chewing sounds echoing through the pipes at night. When inmates screamed in their sleep, Elias tasted copper on his tongue, even from across the block. He noticed something worse. When the guard passed his cell now, he slowed, and for just a second, tilted his head, as if recognizing Elias, as if Elias had been marked. The next disappearance happened 3 nights later. Inmate 1427, no name left to forget, was found flattened against the ceiling of his cell. His body spread like wet paint. His spine had been pulled through his mouth. His eyes were missing, leaving empty sockets that still leaked blood slowly, drip by drip. Elias didn't flinch. Instead, something inside him answered. A warmth bloomed behind his eyes. A deep, sick satisfaction twisted in his stomach. He realized, with horror, that he could feel it when the guard fed. That night, the guard stopped again. This time, he leaned closer. "You see now," the guard whispered. It was the first sound Elias had ever heard him make. The voice didn't come from his mouth. It came from everywhere. From the walls. From Elias's teeth. From inside his own head. "I don't punish," the guard continued. "I harvest." Elias screamed as memories not his own flooded him. Hundreds of faces, thousands of screams, decades of meat consumed behind unblinking eyes. The guard's smile widened. "Soon," he said, "you'll help me watch." Elias stopped sleeping altogether. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the prison as it truly was. Not stone and steel, but flesh. The walls pulsed. The floors swallowed blood and sighed in relief. Stillwatch wasn't a prison. It was a body. And the guard was its immune system. The inmates weren't prisoners. They were infections. Elias began to understand his role. When a man stared too long now, Elias felt it instantly. A sharp pressure behind his eyes, a tug in his chest. Sometimes, without realizing it, he found himself staring back, guiding their gaze, choosing. On the 10th night after Marcus's death, Elias felt the guard stand beside him. "You're learning," the guard said softly. Elias didn't scream this time. He smiled. The morning Elias disappeared, the guards found his cell empty. No blood, no struggle. Only 2 sets of footprints leading into the corridor, one human, one not. That night, inmates whispered of a second guard walking the halls. This one blinked. The second guard did not walk like the first. Where the original moved with mechanical precision, this one drifted slow, curious, almost gentle. His boots left wet prints that steamed faintly on the concrete, as if the floor itself recoiled from his touch. He blinked often, too often. Each blink left behind a faint smear of red at the corners of his eyes. Inmates began disappearing faster. Not torn, not bitten, chosen. Those taken by the second guard were found days later sitting upright on their bunks, faces frozen in peaceful expressions. No visible wounds. No blood spilled until the bodies were touched. At the slightest movement, their skin split open like overripe fruit, spilling organs that had been rearranged with careful intent. Stillwatch had learned refinement. Surveillance cameras caught brief glitches. 2 guards standing face to face, unmoving, staring into each other's eyes. In one frozen frame, Elias's face could be seen beneath the second guard's skin, stretched and half-formed, as if still growing into his new role. The original guard never blinked. The second one blinked for both of them. And with every blink, the prison grew quieter. A riot finally broke the silence. Desperation outweighed fear as dozens of inmates charged the corridor, armed with broken beds and sharpened bones. They screamed prayers, curses, names of mothers long dead. The guards waited. The first inmate reached the original guard and stopped mid-step. His body convulsed as if seized by invisible hooks. His eyes rolled back, then burst, spraying the walls with thick, dark blood. The second guard blinked. Every rioter collapsed at once. Not dead. Not yet. Their chests rose and fell in perfect synchronization. The prison breathed with them. The walls pulsed faster, louder, hungry. Elias stepped forward from the shadow of the second guard. He removed his face. Skin peeled away in long, wet sheets, revealing something unfinished beneath. Eyes forming and dissolving, teeth rearranging themselves with soft, clicking sounds. "Watching isn't enough," Elias said. "Now we shape." The prisoners screamed as the floor softened beneath them, swallowing legs, then hips, then torsos. The riot ended without a single drop of blood wasted. Stillwatch had evolved. Years later, Stillwatch reopened. New inmates arrived to clean walls that gleamed unnaturally, floors that felt warm beneath bare feet. Records showed no incidents, no deaths, perfect compliance. 2 guards walked the halls. One never blinked. The other blinked and smiled. Inmates learned quickly. Never stare. Never wonder. Never try to understand. Because understanding was an invitation. And Stillwatch was always watching.